Now, let's look at perhaps some hypothetical examples, or you might be able to give me some real examples, too. Does ACTA perhaps go in a situation where there's an individual university situation and be proactive? Or is it more in the area of here's a general report on the state of university education? And why I'm asking that is I'm sure there's individual cases that stand out more than others. So my question is, how could you see ACTA getting itself involved in a situation like that? Like, say, John Doe University may have a professor there or a whole department that decided to make it their policy, we're going to teach social justice and only this viewpoint, and other viewpoints won't be will be graded lower. Just say that as a hypothetical example. How would ACTA get involved?
Well, typically the American Council of Trustees and Alumni undertakes national studies. In the area of intellectual diversity, for instance, we undertook a survey using the University of Connecticut Survey Center that looked at the atmosphere in the classroom. And we went to those who know best, namely the students in that classroom, and we asked various questions. Did they feel that the classroom was open to multiple perspectives? Did the professor import politics into the classroom when it had nothing to do with the class? We were able to come up with national data. And then with that national data, when there is a situation in a college campus that raises questions about fairness and balance, we're able to raise these data, and we systematically take the results of our national studies and we send them to boards of trustees so that they are aware, here's what's happening in terms of your curriculum, here's what your organization says it is studying, here's in fact what students do study, or in the case of intellectual diversity and the atmosphere in the classroom, we've done 2 studies, politics in the classroom, and another one called How Many Ward Churchills. Again, taking a look at what is happening in the classroom on a national basis, and then bringing it home by then following up on the national study with questions and letters to the specific institutions that are covered in the report.
So it sounds like the process is we'll conduct a study of what's going on, present that study to the university, see if they'll take action internally before perhaps what could be the next step. Say the university doesn't take any action, or a department doesn't take action, or doesn't seem to be anything to ACTA's satisfaction. What would be the next step that would it just simply be involved in public media, bringing more attention, contacting Congress people? What is a situation that you see perhaps as, might involve more activity than just, for back a word, shaming, or publicly exposing what's going on? Hopefully something like that can be taken care of internally, but if nothing happens, what's the next step?
Well, we're talking about a multi-pronged process, clearly. First, create a study that looks at key issues in higher education, whether it's curricular quality or the atmosphere in the classroom, and then publicize that, because again, public awareness of what happens on our colleges and campuses is important. The public supports these institutions. The public deserves to know what's happening. And too often, because of the insularity of our colleges and universities, the information of actually what happens on the campus screen does not get out to the public. So our goal number 1 is to raise public awareness about what is happening. When we find that there are issues of concern, for instance, curricula which lack structure, which do not ensure exposure to general areas of knowledge, we then follow up with those folks who can make a difference. The boards of trustees, working with faculty and working with administrators, urging them to review their curricula, urging them to ask, what is it we want our graduates to know? And then asking them internally to take the steps necessary once they've reviewed it that they feel are important. Again, on the issues of the atmosphere in the classroom, we found repeatedly in our studies that students felt often intimidated. Nearly a third of the students that we surveyed in our national study said that they felt their grade was in danger if they did not agree with the professor. 49% of the students that we surveyed nationally said that professors imported politics frequently into the classroom, even when it had nothing to do with the course at hand. Our goal is then to take that data and impart that information to the folks within the institutions to do something and urge them internally to act. And obviously, we hope that that will occur. There are other pressure points as well, continuing public awareness, And we certainly have worked in the past with legislators who are concerned about the institutions they fund, who are interested in ensuring that these institutions have academic freedom, academic quality, and accountability. And so we have feel that legislative action, quite frankly, is the last resort, and that ideally the institution should take the corrective measures internally to deal and ensure with the quality of education. But obviously, if they don't, it's perfectly then appropriate for legislators to be interested, to pay attention, and to demand accountability from these institutions.
Now, I would like to learn a bit more about the survey process,
Mm-hmm.
because it does sound, to gather enough data, especially on a national scale, it does need to be rather extensive, or at
Mm-hmm.
least to have enough of a sample. With this report you described on all the percentages and the factors,
Mm-hmm.
to the best of your knowledge, I know you don't have it in front of you now, but how would you say the study went on? Did it do samplings from people in the classes themselves? Say hi. Would you be willing to participate in a study, and then you work with them, whether it's over the phone or written form, and then afterwards from that, so like a quantitative number of how many people out of all these classes to get some kind of idea, because I'm sure it would be impossible to get 100% of the people responding to an outside organization answer.
Well, the American Council of Trustees and Alumni commissioned the University of Connecticut Center for Survey Research and Analysis. Obviously, this is an entity that, for a living, does important survey analysis, and it does so in a scientifically valid way. And it was then up to the University of Connecticut to develop the system for surveying. It was done via telephone. It was done through a wide array of students in 50 institutions across the country, the top 50 according to U.S. News and World Report. And in developing the questions and answers, the Roper Center, as we refer to it, was able to produce results with a plus or minus 4 reliability factor, so that these were data that were based on scientific measures and scientific procedures, and therefore reliable in talking to the institutions that are involved in them.
It's interesting you mention that, only because I remember reading a report, briefly reading a report by American Federation of Teachers that, and I think it becomes hard to see as where does critical scrutiny come in, but then where does political bias come in. I think they said their own interpretation of the study that it wasn't as scientific as it needed to be. Are you familiar with their responses, or how would you respond to a statement like that? Like I said, this is actually posted on the American Federation of Teachers website that looked at that report.
I'm not familiar specifically with that criticism, but of course, when we bring criticism to bear on higher education, often those who are insiders, often those who may be part of the problem, find fault with these studies. And again, part of our message is that academic freedom is also academic responsibility, and that academic freedom and the ability to teach and the ability to engage in scholarship also entails with it responsibility for the students in the classroom. And it's perfectly appropriate then for institutions who pay for these colleges and universities to examine whether or not professors are living up to their responsibilities in the classroom. That's simply what this study was about, and sometimes the Academy doesn't like criticism, but that doesn't mean that these practices shouldn't be revealed for public consumption.
Do you take that as a bit ironic that academic institutions, or even their advocates that are also geared to protecting the right scrutiny, might seem to be hostile to the idea of being scrutinized themselves?
It is rather ironic sometimes that institutions which, as a living, argue for looking at issues in a broad way often balk at any sort of public scrutiny. And again, what we found is that they often equate criticism with censorship, and when in fact the two are not the same. When ACTA does various surveys looking at the atmosphere in the classroom or looking at college catalogs, we simply are relying on data from the students themselves, from the college catalogs themselves that these professors have written, and so bringing to bear commentary based on their own words and their own public face.